Hello, everyone, and welcome to the November 21st, 2018 Lake County Sentinel Podcast. We decided to start a little different tonight, and we would start with the political and news portion of the show because there's a lot to talk about. We're a half hour tonight. We're going to be a half hour from now on. I think that unless we have something really news breaking to talk about in sports, we're probably going to just be a half hour from now on. Most nights we will start with sports, but tonight we're going to start with politics first. That was why the introduction, which was our political introduction. You know, you can read more opinions and news at LakeCountySentinel.com. That's www.LakeCountySentinel.com. That's our website. You can follow us on Twitter at LCSentinelcom, or you could follow us at SportsSentinel.com on Twitter, not .com, just at Sports Sentinel, or you can follow my personal Twitter, which is at Indians Tim. Those are ways to follow us on social media. You can also follow us on Facebook. We have Lake County Sentinel Facebook page where we do a lot of updates. But let's get started here tonight with, excuse me, the political portion of the show. We're going to turn on the comments, which means you can comment on topics during our podcast, and they will show up on the side during the live podcast. So I'm going to turn on the comments now. We've had some comments in the past. So I may comment back even if people start commenting in the section. But what we're going to start with tonight is President Trump, once again, pretty much making a fool of himself. You know, he's making a fool of himself. When he talked to the media today about the Ninth Circuit judge in New York, who was an Obama appointment, what a horrible judge he is, and how he thinks we have to do something about these judges. Well, of course, because he's like a dictator, and he wants judges that are going to rule in favor of him all the time. He doesn't want fair judges. He wants judges that are going to just rule his way. So it was great that Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, who was a Bush appointee, came out and strongly rebuked Trump's comments, saying that judges are not Obama appointees, judges are not Trump appointees, judges are not Clinton appointees, and judges aren't Bush appointees. He came out and said they're hardworking judges who go by the rule of law. Trump does not understand the rule of law. Therefore, he doesn't understand what these judges are doing. He only understands what he wants to understand, which is pretty much nothing. You know, he doesn't really understand much. I mean, I don't think I'm going too far when I say he's probably the dumbest president that we ever had. I mean, he's just not very smart. Of course, his supporters would disagree with that, and they would, they would say some horrible and awful things about who the dumbest president was. But that's typical of his supporters because they have zero class. Okay? Trump supporters have zero class. They have no class. They are the classless. They're the most classless group of political supporters I've ever seen in my life. I never thought I would see a group worse than the group, and a lot of them are the same people, than the group that supported Sarah Palin. But these people are worse. Trump supporters are worse than the people that supported Sarah Palin. I mean, Sarah Palin was a joke, but she makes Trump supporters make her supporters look like they had common sense, which we know they didn't. But, that's pretty much here or there. So now, Trump not only, excuse me, Trump not only makes the stupid comment about the Supreme Court justices, but he also makes a fool of himself once again by siding with the Saudis, siding with Saudi Arabia, tweeting this morning that we must thank the Saudis for the lower gas prices. The Saudis who are responsible for killing journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the CIA found that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia ordered the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. And so what do we have? We have the man who cares about money over everything else, Donald Trump, praising the Saudis in a tweet this morning. And let's not be mistaken, people. These tweets are official White House statements. Because when Sean Spicer was press secretary, someone asked him about Trump's comments on Twitter, and is he going to release a statement, an official White House statement? And Sean Spicer said, Mr. President Trump's tweets are official White House statements. So remember, anything he says on Twitter is an official White House statement. That includes praising the murderous Saudi Crown Prince. That's what we've come to. Donald Trump praising the murderous Saudi Arabian Crown Prince who ordered the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi embassy in Istanbul, Turkey. And Donald Trump thinks that's okay because his son-in-law has business dealings with the Crown Prince. And we all know that business comes before everything else with Trump and his sad followers. Money means more than human lives with Donald Trump and his pathetic followers. Let's move on to another Donald Trump pathetic occurrence or non-occurrence. How about that? Non-occurrence. Remember right before the election how Donald Trump said they were about to introduce a bill in Congress, him and the Republicans, a middle class tax cut. They were gonna introduce it right before the election. Never happened. Never happened. Never, ever happened. Congress wasn't even in session then. Never happened. Blatant lie to try to get votes. Blatant Trump lie. Blatant. His followers believed it because that's what they do. Believe anything the guy says. Some of the dumbest people I ever met when it comes to politics. Some of the dumbest human beings I've ever met. Because they allow fear, money, and race control their lives. And when I talk about fear, I'm talking about the caravan. The caravan that was going to storm our borders and they were going to invade. Those were the words he was using. Storm the border. Invade. It was going to be an invasion. These mobs. Mob. They love that term. The Trump supporters. They love the term mob. They're a mob. If anyone's a mob, it's them. With their violent talk and violent actions. If anyone's a mob, it's them. But you notice how he hasn't talked about the caravan much since the election ended? Because he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. He talked about the mob and the caravan running up to the election because he knew the fools in his base, the fools, that's right, the fools in his base would fall for it hook, line, and sinker. They would fall for it. They would believe that those immigrants were going to storm the border and invade our country if you didn't vote Republican. You know, he doesn't care that he sent troops there at Thanksgiving either, because they're tough people and they can handle being away from their families. If any of you actually believe that this man cares about our military or our troops or our veterans, you are nuts. He could care less about them. Donald Trump cares nothing about anyone but himself and a few of his family members. He cares about no one but his little group, his family, and a couple friends. He cares about no one. So don't you tell me he cares about the troops. He cares about our border security. He doesn't care about any of that. He cares about keeping his power. That's all he cares about. Anyone who believes anything else is stupid. Yes, stupid. He plays on your racist fears. That's what he plays on. He plays on racism and fear. Just like a guy did in Europe in the 1930s. Yes, he does the same thing as him. We know it. You people can deny it all you want, but you know it's true. That's what he does. I'm ending it on that note. That's the end of our political portion of the show for tonight. Now we're going to head to our sports portion.
Indian fever, it's catching fire with everyone. Indian fever, you can be part of the fun. You're the winner at every game. That's where the excitement begins. So catch Indian fever, be a believer with the Cleveland Indians.
Welcome back to the Lake County Sentinel Podcast. It's now time to talk a little bit of sports. We have some categories that I'm really passionate about tonight. We have today is the return of LeBron James to Cleveland as a Laker. I mean, it's a lot different than when he returned in 2010. This time he fulfilled his promise. He brought us that championship we had been waiting for 52 years. And he fulfilled that. And the Cavs won a championship in 2016. And I think that anyone who's a Cleveland sports fan should be grateful to LeBron James, not only LeBron James, but grateful to everyone who was on that team and the coaches of that team. It's only been 2 years since that happened, but it seems like a lot of people have forgotten, but that was something that a lot of us never thought we would see, a Cleveland championship, and we did, and LeBron brought it to us. So he returns tonight, and that's great, and I don't think it's going to be anything like when he returned in 2010 after he left to go to the Miami Heat. It shouldn't be anything like that. Let's face it, he didn't leave the right way in 2010. He made us look bad, and hopefully things are better tonight, and the fans act better tonight, and I think they will. I think watching Channel 3 earlier, I noticed Jim Donovan, who enjoys taking a shot at any franchise that isn't the Browns and their fans. He said it was, one of the most embarrassing nights in Cleveland sports history. Not embarrassing. What did he say? It was one of the ugliest nights in Cleveland sports history. And I would agree it was an ugly night, but there were reasons for that to be an ugly night. I mean, it got set. LeBron set that night up to be ugly. He did. The way he left, he set it up to be ugly when he returned. But let's face it. He didn't do himself any good the way he left. He left in a really, really bad way. And I think, you can't blame the Cleveland fans for being angry at him how he left. I just don't think so. Did we get over it? Yeah, we did. We welcomed him back, and he was bigger than ever when he came back. And, you have to understand, you would think Jim Donovan, he's been here long enough, you would think he would understand what happened there, but I guess not. I guess he only sees things from the Browns fan perspective. I think that, two of the worst nights in Cleveland sports history, the LeBron James night was bad, but let me tell you something. I don't think, 10-cent beer night or nickel beer night at the stadium was exactly a great night for Cleveland sports either. When the Major League Baseball game has to get canceled because idiots run on the field. I think that, the people that were probably at that game that night, most of the people in that crowd got their calendars mixed up, and they were a few months early. They thought they were going to show up for a Browns game, and then they realized it was an Indians game. And so, that's a bad night. That was a bad night. That made Cleveland look bad. There's no doubt it did. But also, let's not forget when Browns fans threw beer bottles at the referees during the Jaguars game. That wasn't good. That was really ugly. That made our city look really bad. I remember that being national news. That made Cleveland look really bad. So don't tell me that booing LeBron James a little bit after the way he left in 2010 is more of a black eye than when we throw beer bottles at officials and the game has to be canceled because they keep getting hit with beer bottles from the drunken fans in the stands. Okay? So that's no worse. It's not even close. People, they're allowed to, show their frustration in a nonviolent way, which is what they did the night that LeBron returned. He understood it completely. He completely understood. When he entered the arena that night, he knew how it was going to be because he understands the passion of Clevelanders. They did it. They did it. They weren't violent. They didn't throw anything at him. But Browns fans and Indians fans, I'll say it, they did get violent. Okay? So those are much worse incidents than when LeBron returned in 2010. Hopefully nothing will be like that tonight. It will be a good night. And, there'll be a video tribute to him. These video tributes are a little out of hand, but for him, I think it's needed. I mean, I think when a guy plays for a team for 11 games and they do a video tribute, it's like, are you kidding me? What kind of world are we living in? We're living in a millennial world. That's what we're living in. But so that's the end of that. We got for the next 3 minutes or more, I want to discuss something I felt passionate about for a long time, and I could get emotional when I talk about this because, being a Browns fan growing up and remembering the teams of the 80s, the cardiac kids of the early 80s, and then the teams of the late 80s, Clay Matthews. I just don't understand. But I have a theory. But still, just because I have a theory, it still doesn't justify it. Why is Clay Matthews, and for the young people, I'm not talking about Clay Matthews on the Packers. He's Clay Matthews III. I'm talking about Clay Matthews, who played for the Cleveland Browns for 16 years. From 1978 to 1994, or 1993, and then 2 years with the Atlanta Hawks. And there might have been a third year and he was injured a lot of that year. But there is a measuring stick in football similar to baseball. In baseball, it's WAR, and that's what a lot of guys are judged by now. Puts a lot of stuff together, and it's a formula, and it's a simple formula. Instead of judging guys by, he has this many yards, this many touchdowns, and this many, or in baseball, his average is this high, but he doesn't have a lot of RBIs. So in baseball, they go by WAR, wins above replacement. Okay. In football, they go by AV. I have no idea what AV stands for, so I don't know. But that's what they go by in football. Well, Clay Matthews, I know this is going to surprise a lot of people because it surprised me when I found out, but I found this out a few years ago. Clay Matthews has the highest AV in the history of the Cleveland Browns. So if you want to look at it, the most valuable player in the history of the Cleveland Browns, okay, is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's not. How does that make any sense? Jim Brown's in the Hall of Fame. Otto Graham's in the Hall of Fame. Okay? Paul Warfield's in the Hall of Fame. All of these players are in the Hall of Fame. And apparently, though, Clay Matthews was more valuable to his team than those guys. Clay Matthews was more valuable to his team than Dick Schaffrath, Jim Brown, Gene Hickerson, Joe Thomas, Leroy Kelly, Doug Deacon, Brian Sipe, Gary Collins, Hall of Famer, Hanford Dixon, Frank Ryan, and Jim Houston, Hall of Famer. but he's not in the Hall of Fame. How is that possible? Here's my theory on this horrible miscarriage of justice that Clay Matthews is not in the Hall of Fame. My theory is, even though the Browns had some good teams, some good playoff teams when Clay Matthews played on the team, Cardiac Kids and then the the Marty Schottenheimer, Bud Carson teams, late 80s, early 90s. They never had an identity. They didn't have a defensive identity, that's for sure. How good could their defense have been? They gave up a 98-yard, drive. John Elway scored. They won the game. How good could their defense be? I think that's it. I think that's the reason. If Clay Matthews had played on the early 2000s through 2013 Baltimore Ravens, he's in the Hall of Fame. As much as I hate the Ravens, he's in the Hall of Fame. The Steelers, as much as I hate the Steelers, if he played on the Steel Curtain defense, he's in the Hall of Fame. If he played on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the late 90s to 2007, he's in the Hall of Fame. Great defenses. People would have known him. But he played on the Cleveland Browns, who weren't really known for defense, so he's not in the Hall of Fame. This year is the year to put Clay Matthews in the Hall of Fame. I really hope he gets in this year because he deserves it. He really deserves it. And I don't think there's anything more to say about him, except he was a great player and he's a great person. He's a really nice person. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. We got 2 minutes left in the show. So it's time for Toppling Tim Presents. And I'm going to do my NFL picks. We didn't do very well last week. Nope. And my guest, my son Tommy, he's here tonight.
Hello.
And so he's going to do his picks too. Neither of us did really well last week. I was 3-10 and got 12 confidence points, which is horrible. Tommy was 5-8 and got 33 confidence points. Excuse me. So I'm going to try to do a little better this week. But there's some Thanksgiving games. So we figure we do these tonight, and then we'll do our 15-minute show on Sunday. But we're going to do this now, and here we go. I have Chicago beating Detroit. Detroit's getting 3 points at home. They're the home dog on turf in a dome on Thanksgiving on the 22nd of November, which is not a good thing. So I think the Bears are going to win, and they're going to cover the 3 points, and I have 7 points confidence. What do you have, Tommy?
I have the Bears with 7-point confidence.
How about that? Okay, so now we're going to go to the Dallas-Washington affair. The Redskins are getting 7.5. They are the road dog on turf in Dallas in a semi-dome. It might be a full dome now, but whatever, on Thanksgiving. And I'm going with Washington with 2 points confidence.
I'm going with the Cowboys with 2 points confidence.
Okay. The Cowboys find a lot of ways to blow things on Thanksgiving, but okay. So you got 2 points with them winning, though. Okay, so there we go. So then we got the New Orleans-Atlanta game, and Atlanta's getting 13 points. They're a 13-point dog on the road on turf in a dome, and I'm going to go with New Orleans with 3 points.
I'm going to go with New Orleans with 15 points.
Whoa! Seriously, wow, that's a lot of points for such a big point spread. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. We'll find out on Sunday. We can talk about these games, but we are all out of time for tonight. And I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving, and we should all be thankful for everything we have and for all our friends and for our sports teams. And we'll see everyone on the other side of Thanksgiving on Friday night at 7 o'clock. Until then, have a good holiday, everybody.